least a couple of times, and I could have bet any money in the world that we would have got a high sort of soloing guitar over the top. And lo and behold, it appears.
Mhm.
And it did. And it sees us out. And I enjoyed that as a lot as well, actually. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. Right. My name's John. His name's Andy.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only woman I need, and baby, you know it. You can make this beggar a king, a clown, or a poet, because I've got nothing to hide, just a piece of long. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to. Andy, please make the pain go away. Tell us, what have you got?
No, I just want to let that sit a little longer. I've got a band for you called Papa Vegas.
I don't preach. Oh, Papa Vegas.
Vegas.
Okay. What a fucking awful song that was.
Yes.
And really, considering her position at the time and what young teenage girls thought of her, fucking irresponsible as well. She's just her way of getting back in with the Catholic Church. Bollocks.
Mhm.
Anyway, that aside, Papa Vegas, yes. So what's the name of the song?
Yes, the name of the track is Bombshell.
Alan Partridge's favourite signing off. And on that bombshell. Brilliant.
Exactly. How do you get thought about that? yeah. Papa Vegas, the track's called Bombshell. Please go off, give it a listen, come back and let me know what you thought of it.
Will do, mon Capitan.
Once again, the bombshell is closed.
Okay, yeah, I've got a handle on this, I think. So, a couple of things. One, I like the thumbnail. It kind of reminds me of what was that other band that Andy showed me? Failure, something Planet. What's the name of the album? It's not the same image, but it's kind of the same style. I think same feel to it. Anyway, I like this sort of fake ugly strip down the wrong side as well. That's cool. Yeah, it starts off, you got a chug chug, then you got the drum fill in installments, a la Phil Collins. Yeah, lovely stuff. And then really nice sounding, that tone to that lead guitar is really nice. And then in comes your singer, and we are in post-grunge territory, I believe, of which, if they towed the line, record executive line, there's a very strict formula to the songs and how they're structured. So we should see how this progresses.
I pretend to turn my head in defense. What comes next is perfect in every sense. Well, I guess you catch what you hear, 'cause the change is in hand, and you can't really blame where your feet will is closing in. is half our defense. In the end, you'll figure it out more or less. Still, I guess you catch what you can, 'cause the change is at hand, and you can't really plan where your feet will land. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. You catch what you can, 'cause the change is at hand, and you can't really plan where your feet will land. Bow down. Bow down. Bow down. Hand in hand. Bow down. Bow down. Hand in hand. That is why we all have souls. That is why we all have souls. I believe.
Okay, so it's interesting. It is slightly formulaic, in terms of you have this sort of, fairly simple verse, which then explodes into the chorus, which is all open, extended notes, singing, bit of chugging. There you go. But they put all little touches in there. I quite like that sort of bit there where they sort of broke down. There was that nice ringing guitar that sort of reverbed out, had a lovely tone to that as well. More Phil Collins just then. But yeah, his voice is really familiar. Like, I've not heard his voice before, but it reminds me of somebody else. And elements of this remind me, what is it, In the Meantime? Is that Space Hog? I get it all wrong, I don't know. And other bits as well, other sort of bands. It's a really nice sort of slice of that sort of time and that sort of music. I don't think it's anything particularly, spectacular or individualistic. Yeah, it's just this really nice song. And yeah, decently well done. I was going to take a little bit back where it goes into that funny little bit, and then before it breaks down, we get full glory, full Phil Collins again. That's nice.
Bow down, hand in hand. That is why we all have souls. That is why we all have souls. I believe. I believe. I believe. I
I could have bet you any amount of money that there was going to be a higher guitar coming in at the end. Yeah, it's still welcome. Though. It sounds great, but yeah. I don't know if that bit at the end was part of the song or leading into something else. Nice to hear it anyway, isn't it? Hey? Yeah, this is interesting. It's a nice song. I enjoyed it. I say it wasn't particularly unique. Just a really nice example of that period of yeah, post grunge, I guess you'd call it. There seemed to be, I know I've rattled on to this about this before with Andy, there seemed to be a lot of American bands sounding like this. And I kind of felt at the time that they were foisted on us by the record labels, and there was nothing else. You had to really search for other stuff out there, and it kind of got my nerves. I'm over that now. It doesn't get my nerves anymore. But yeah, this is pleasant enough. Let's find out some more about this band and this tune by going back and having a good old natter. Our friend Andy.
All right, welcome back. You went off and gave Bombshell by Papa Vegas a listen. What did you make of it, sir?
I didn't get Papa Vegas or Bombshell vibes off any of this, but you know, I thought straight off the bat, interesting. The thumbnail is not the same, but it gave me vibes of Failure.
Yeah, the Failure album cover.
Something Planet. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing, you know.
Fantastic.
But I don't know if it was a lettering, but that it kind of made me. It's just I didn't know if the head was actually resting on the planet's surface or if it was floating, and it kind of made me think of a Russian cosmonaut rather than a American astronaut.
Yeah, astronaut, right?
These are the things that pop through your head. Anyway, so it starts with a nice chugga guitar, and a drum fill in installments, commonly known in this country as a la Phil Collins. Before being joined by this rich sort of lead guitar with this lovely tone. We are in the fabled land of post-grunge, where streets are paved with lumberjack shirts, methadone, and greedy record sales executives who worship spreadsheets and enforce a strict structure to songs if they want to make it to market. A rarefied time indeed. I will say off the bat, I did enjoy this song. It's not going to change my life or anything, but it was again. I think we had this with a song before recently. It's a slice of that time, and it's a really decent representation and slice of it. And there were some terrible post-grunge representations. And this wasn't one of them. So vocalist begins. There is a whiff of familiarity to his tone, and I wish I could pin down what it was, but I can't, unfortunately. But it's there, you know. It's not like he is doing an impression of somebody else, but there is just this, it's adjacent to that, whatever that is. The verse, the pre-chorus and then chorus, they're very simple, and it is, I wouldn't say predictable, but you know, there's a structure there, and it follow that structure, and it's fine. You know where you are, you know, you're not in uncharted territory, but they do add little touches to zhuzh it up a little bit and create a bit of interest along the way. I think that on the whole, the verse side of it, it did remind me a bit of, and we've mentioned this recently as well, In the Meantime, Space Hog. It had the same sort of vibe to it. And there was some nice arpeggio sort of guitar work briefly scattered amongst that first verse that just added little bits to it, sort of floating around, which I thought was really nice. And then we get to like the pre-chorus, and it just made me picture Noel Gallagher ripping off a Beatles pre-chorus from around the Magical Mystery Tour era. You know, I know you won't be happy with me mentioning that. No, but
the one reason I wanted to get, or one of the main reasons I wanted to bring this song to the channel is because I know whether you're a huge fan or you're not, you're an Englishman, so there's no way you haven't heard just about everything from Oasis. It's probably unavoidable. But this song to me reminds me so much of Oasis that I wanted to see if you caught even an iota of what I picked up when I heard this song, and it sounds like you are, which is great affirmation for me because I was hoping you would.
I mean, the particular one is the sort of pre-chorus to Whatever, where he sort of he goes into that sort of you know, you sing along the words into each other so get off the bus, cause no first thing, blah, 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 I'm free. Which he totally ripped off from Neil Innes, the Russells. How sweet to be an idiot. But anyway, that's another story. But again, it's that, and then they go to that chorus, which is that extended note chorus, which so these things have been common throughout decades. But yeah, so then it opens up into the chorus, which is bright and wide and open with that extended note. I believe he's singing. I believe he's singing. I believe.
No, and you're correct. He is.
But yeah, so it's really nice, and again, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say sing along, but you kind of hum along, and it's it's catchy. I like it. Very simple, but it's nice there, and the guitars expand a bit as well. The chorus outro we get this time is the same, that words running in each other's style, that it neatly contrasts the stretched out nature of the chorus as well. So you get that stretching out and then breathing in again, and it contracts and as I think the words are bow down repeats, that nice lead guitar comes back in again, and then we get a sort of group song or multiple voice song hand in hand. That again, it really strongly reminded me of something. It wasn't Oasis this time, but I could not put my finger on it, but I found it pleasing. I quite often, some people say, "Oh, that reminds me of that," and they get annoyed, and I don't know why. Because unless it's a song you hate, why would it annoy you?
Or it's their only trick. Like if the band you're listening to that reminds you of something does it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Where they show no growth or their own identity, then that does annoy me. But yeah.
But everyone's got influences. I mean, fuck's sake, we'd be nowhere if the boys from Liverpool hadn't listened to Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
So we'd just still be doing skiffle. So anyway, I found it play. So you get this nice reverb guitar that's strumming, and we kind of slow down, and he sings that is why we all have souls. I don't know what he's getting out there, but it's a nice line. Before the return of Phil Collins. And then that section from the post-chorus, that section, from the post-chorus through to the return of Phil Collins is the strongest part of the song for me. I really enjoyed that. That strumming sort of reverby guitar bit and the lead as well. Beautiful tone. As I say, you kind of know where you are with the song, can see what was happening with it. But it is a really, really nice slice of American post-grunge rock period music.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned to you before, at the time, I had a bit of an issue with this sort of music, or all sorts of this, because it just felt like it was being foisted on us over here by American record labels. And it was, to a certain extent. And in retrospect, looking back on it, I feel sorry for some of the bands that got signed up in a sort of almost like a sort of land grab or whatever, like that.
Like an arms race.
Yeah, it's the gold rush thing. So we got to get this, And they were probably promised the fucking world and given a massive, advance, which they would have had to pay back when their records didn't, make any money. Treated like shit rather than developing acts like old school A&R stuff. But anyway, so the chorus returns. So I'm getting on my soapbox again. The chorus returns and repeats a couple of times, and I could have bet any money in the world that we would have got a high sort of soloing guitar over the top, and lo and behold, it appears, and it did, and it sees us out. And I enjoyed that a lot as well, actually. So summing it up, got bits and pieces. I don't think there was anything particularly. I couldn't even guess what the song's about. Bombshell, probably about a woman, or an unexploded bomb from World War II, or Alan Partridge. It'd be one of those three. It was not vampires, drugs, or Jesus Christ.
I was going to say it's a nice. Any of those three is a nice divergence from the holy trinity of what it normally is. So
so I'd say it's nothing unique, but it's a really decent example of that time and that style with enough touches to keep it interesting, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did. Obviously, I've already told you sort of one of the main reasons why I gave this to you is because this track just makes me think of Oasis for some reason, just how it sounds to me. But also I think similarly, you're right that it's good for what it is, and of that genre, where so many bands and songs got thrown at us. This is one of the good ones. I thought,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because these guys never really truly broke through, which is kind of because you think about some of the bad ones that did slip through the cracks during that time.
Yeah.
To think that here's one who's capable of
There's no
writing.
justice in the world, is there?
Yeah, exactly. How does this happen? So, yeah, Papa Vegas, they are a rock band. They formed in the, I think, early to mid 90s. I couldn't hammer down a number, but I'm an exact date, but that's judging what I know about them. I'm pretty sure it was the early to mid 90s. They released 2 studio albums and were signed to RCA Records. Again, one of those monolithic labels at the time, just throwing whatever they could at us. Papa Vegas was founded in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where vocalist Joel Ferguson and guitarist Pete Dunning first met and began playing together. And Dunning and Ferguson collaborated for 3 years before parting ways for individual projects, and Ferguson played under the name Papa Vegas with a variety of other musicians. Their music was inspired by musical heroes like the Beatles, the Police, and Depeche Mode. After playing with Papa Vegas at a Battle of the Bands competition, they were heard by Brian Vander Ark, who we've talked about in a previous episode. He was the lead singer of the Verve Pipe, who sang that song "The Freshman" about the abortion and that whole narrative behind it. It was a request by one of our listeners. Yes, so under the same umbrella, this sort of Grand Rapids, Michigan area, they were spotted by Vander Ark and they signed them to his Sid Flips label and produced their debut EP, Grounded, with Pete Dunning back on lead guitar, Scott Stefanski on drums, and original bassist Mick Force. It's a hell of a name, Mick Force. Sid Flips was folded into RCA. And the group was set up with Don Gilmore to produce their first debut full-length album. The result was released as Hello Vertigo in April 1999. All songs on the album were written by Joel Ferguson, with the exception of Sermon Underground, which was co-written by Ferguson and Dunning. Their biggest hit single was Bombshell, which peaked at number 20 on the Billboard Modern Rock Track chart in 1999. Following the album's release, they toured with the Verve Pipe and also Kent, a critically acclaimed band from Stockholm who was touring the U.S. under RCA's European label. And they had a lesser hit with the release of Something Wrong, but the full length did not sell as well as hoped, and no further hit singles followed that. So it was really just that 2, and only one of them was a hit. The group was dropped from the RCA label in March of 2000. So God, they dropped it in 99, and less than a year later they were completely dropped, which just goes to show you how quickly. Yeah, and it speaks to your sympathy for them that you now, we're discussing just a moment ago, where it's like, God, they were just throwing these guys into the meat machine and just seeing what they could churn out of them. And if it was nothing, so long, see you later. But
Sorry, Andy. I think at that time, unless I'm wrong, that would have been all the sort of the existential crisis that Napster provided as well. And so all these record labels, and we spoke about it before, at the end of the 90s, beginning of the noughties, all merging and stuff, and they were all shake-ups, and new executives would come in and dump bands, and it was pretty much chaos,
Yeah, and over here, the post-grunge movement was dying. By 1999, in the year 2000. And what really was garnering most of the money, this is just before stuff like the Strokes and the White Stripes really came into focus. This was almost like the mid to end of the new metal phase, which is what all of the labels were grabbing up over here and churning out. So I'm surprised they even made it through putting out post-grunge in 1999, because really at that point it was just give me Korn or Limp Bizkit or any of these other horrible, So, I don't think the stars were not properly aligned for these guys. If they had gotten a jump start and put this out in maybe 94, they could have got a few more years and maybe another shot at the album instead of just dropped almost immediately. But yeah, it is what it is, and the music business is just that. It's a business before it's an art form, unfortunately. But yeah, in December of 2004, the band reunited to play a large venue show with the Verve Pipe. The show was a success, and they repeated it in December of 2005. Ferguson, Stefanski, and Dunning regrouped for various projects on and off in the years that followed, most notably the band or the project called Miles to Mars. Pete Dunning went on to play in the Grand Rapids groups Molly, White Rabbit, and the Barrel Bones, while Scott Stefanski and Joel Ferguson played in the Verve Pipe. In January 2009, Papa Vegas regrouped as a five-piece with John Connors, not the Terminator, replacing Force on bass and adding Randy Tate on keyboards. So, these lyrics. Once again, the bombshell is closing in. I pretend to turn my head in defense. What comes next is perfect in every sense. Well, I guess you can't really plan where your feet will land. I believe, once again, the bombshell is closing in. I pretend the distance is half our defense. What comes next is perfect in every sense. Well, I guess you can't really plan where your feet will land. I believe. Bow down, hand in hand. Bow down, hand in hand. That is why we all have souls. That is why we all have souls, I believe. So yeah, I don't really know what the song is about, and I couldn't really find what it was, but it wouldn't surprise me if this song was perhaps about, and it would be kind of sad if it was, but the imminent and impending arrival of stardom, perhaps for this young band writing their first album that they knew was signed to a major record label, and probably had some pie in the sky notions themselves, being perhaps a bit naive to the business. I could be wrong.
Sure.
But that is sort of my supposition until someone, tells me otherwise. And I'll never know until that maybe my idea is confirmed also. But unfortunately for the band, their popularity with the mainstream was less a bombshell and more just a fart against a hard surface, which is a shame and no fault of their own. Like we said, a few times now into this, far shittier bands made it much farther than these guys with worse songs. So it's just, I guess it's the way the proverbial cookie crumbles. And it's a shame sometimes because good songs made by fine musicians slip through the cracks from time to time or don't make it near as far as they possibly should. And I thought this was a good example of that from that time period. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, they still achieve what 99% of bands have never ever achieved in their lifetime. I mean, if you just think literally in terms of numbers, I don't know about Baltimore, but you imagine on a given night in London, I don't know how many bands would be performing. It would be thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, there's thousands of venues from pubs to clubs to whatever. And there's maybe at least two bands usually, support whatever, maybe three or four. So there are many. And of course, your top, your Hot 100 is just 100 bands. And if you just think there's thousands in London every night, hundreds probably in Baltimore, thousands in New York.
Yeah.
It's a global thing now. And just that very elite, like 0.5, 0.1% make it into public consciousness.
Yeah. Yep.
To get a deal and get an album out there, it's amazing, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame from their perspective, but I'm not going to lose sleep over this because I've tried so many times to break through that ceiling and be one of the bands that even got to this point. And it doesn't happen no matter how hard you grind or how much you tour regionally or whatever. It's just a tough slog. So, you're right. In one sense, more, congratulations to them for achieving this. But I'm sure that they would have loved to have done more. In my estimation, I would. Yeah, you're right. Once they get the taste, But in my estimation, they should have compared to some of their contemporaries who did. So, it is what it is, I suppose. But hey, thanks for giving this a listen, John. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Guys out there in the listening audience, let us know what you thought of Papa Vegas and this track Bombshell. I don't know if anybody else picked up on Oasis 5s, but let us know if you did, or any other band, honestly, for that matter. Also, feel free to give us suggestions for our Friday shows. We've got plenty, but we're always happy to add more, especially if they're good suggestions. And you guys have been pretty much batting 1,000 out there so far over 2 years of doing this, just about. So keep up the good work. We welcome any new suggestions. Also, while we have your attention, please think about liking, sharing, and or emphasis on the and subscribing. It really helps us, push the channel out to the algorithm gods and YouTube, and draw in more people, more opinions, and more music, which is really part of the goal here at the Audiophiles. So, all that being said, hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We will see you later, guys.